welcome to Holmes Yoga. Today we're going to be doing a practice that's focusing on the wrists. So there's not going to be a lot of whole body movement. You can essentially do this sitting in a chair if that's more comfortable for you. And the reason that I wanted to focus on the wrist today is because I know a lot of people who've had wrist discomfort and wrist pain, either from spending a lot of time sitting and working at their computers, or practicing a lot of yoga where we are weight bearing on the hands and primarily are in wrist extension, so in this position. And really for the health and the safety of the joint, we need to vary the range of motion that's happening, and we also need to strengthen. So I'd like for you to start by bringing your hands together in front of your heart and just relax your hands, relax your fingers, and press your hands together. So when I do that, I notice that most of the weight is falling right into the heel of the hand, right there. And then if you point your fingers towards the floor and you look at what's happening, they're kind of smashed together. There's not a whole lot of space and there's no engagement through the hands or the forearms. Now, I'd like for you to do the opposite. So take your hands together and then press your fingers and your fingertips especially together really firmly. So now a lot of engagement through the hands, through the forearms. Now, if you point your fingers towards the floor, you might notice that there's a lift through the heel of the hand, or there's a little bit of space. I also feel some engagement through the forearm. So we're going to go ahead and just circle the wrists. So just noticing that, the difference between engagement and no engagement, and then switch the direction of the circle. Make sure that you're getting your fingers involved. And then relax. So this next one is going to be for strength. I'd like for you to extend the arms forward. Palms can face each other, they can face down. And you're going to squeeze your fingers into fists and then squeeze them as hard as you can. Make your forearms strong and then relax. Take a breath, a little stretch. And then squeeze as hard as you can. And then relax. And now start to pick up the pace. Squeeze, release. Really curl your fingertips in. And then do that as fast as you can. Really finding that end range motion, engaging every time. 10 more seconds. 9, are your forearms burning yet? 8, 7, 6, squeeze, release. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, squeeze. And then like you're flicking drops of water off your hands. Little flicks. And then relax. Few simple shoulder rolls. That was intense, yeah? And then interlace your hands together your second favorite way. So I'm right hand dominant, so for me my left thumb is on top. And then just do nice easy circles in this way. You can even figure eight the wrists a little bit if you want. There's inevitably going to be a little bit of movement at the forearms. Okay. So we talked about how we spend a lot of time in wrist extension. We're going to do a little bit of wrist flexion. And also traction. So I'd like for you to take I'll shift this way a little bit. Take your left hand to your right forearm. So not right at the wrist, but a little bit below the wrist. We have 2 bones in the forearm. Squeeze those 2 bones towards each other this way, and then pull towards the elbow. And then you're just going to extend your fingers away from each other. So just giving yourself some traction, putting some space into the joint. And then going into flexion. And then extension. Keep the fingers close. Go into flexion. Keep pulling your hand towards your elbows. You're giving yourself that traction and extension. Now, release for a moment. Turn your palm to the floor. Again, squeeze those 2 bones. Pull towards your elbow. Go into wrist flexion again. And then without moving your forearm, wrist flexion now also add some abduction. So point your fingers away from your body and then reach more through the thumb. More through the pointer finger, more through the middle finger, more through the ring finger, more through the pinky finger, and then all the fingers come back to neutral. Release. Reestablish the squeeze, reestablish the traction. Go back into wrist flexion. Now without moving the forearm, it's harder for this one. Point your fingers in towards your body. And then pinky finger reaches more, ring finger, middle finger, pointer finger, thumb, all the fingers. Come to neutral and release. All right, second side. Taking your right hand to your left forearm, squeeze the 2 bones, pull towards the elbow, give yourself that traction, and then just moving in flexion and extension, nice and slow, really taking the time to explore your range of motion, to feel what's happening in the joint and the surrounding muscles. And then turn your palm, your forearm towards the floor. Re-establish the squeeze, pull towards the elbow, go again into wrist flexion. So point your fingers down and then angle the fingers away from your body. So now abduction, reach first more through the thumb, and then the pointer finger, and then the middle finger, ring finger, pinky, all the fingers. Return to neutral. And then again, squeeze, pull, flex at the wrist. Yeah, try not to rotate at the forearm. Point your fingers in towards your body, and then reach through the pinky finger, the ring finger, the middle finger, the pointer finger, the thumb, and then all the fingers. And then return to neutral. So we're going to do a little bit more with wrist flexion. So in a seated position with your hands pretty close to your body, go ahead and bring the backs of the hands to the ground. Press gently downward into the floor and then pull away from your body or towards the top of your mat. And then gently curl your hands into fists and open them here. You can do that, say 3 times. And then release. Just a little bit of free movement there. You can sweep the arms overhead and lower them down. Just go ahead and interlace your hands together behind you for a moment. Reach the hands back, get a little opening across the chest, and then release your hands to the floor. So you can stay in a pretty tight tabletop, right? So it's not a lot of weight bearing in the hands. And remember how we talked about pressing the fingertips against each other created more engagement, and the muscles in the fingers, a lot of them wrap up the forearm. So what I'd like for you to do is spread your fingers equidistant. They don't have to be, you don't need to do jazz hands, right? All the fingers are about equally spread. And then press all your fingers and your fingertips evenly into the floor. Now take your left hand to your right thumb and try to lift your right thumb up off the floor, and your right thumb is going to resist. So your right thumb is really pressing down into the floor. And then do that with your pointer finger, and then the middle finger, and then the ring finger, and then the pinky finger. And then we'll switch. Place your left hand against the floor, press your fingers and your fingertips down, and then the right hand is going to try to lift your left thumb. And so doing these ranges of motion exercise and strengthening exercises is going to keep us typing healthily at our laptops and opening jars and doing down dog and arm balances for a long time. Now both hands to the floor. I'd like for you to lift the heels of the hands up off the floor. So you're on just your ridge tops. So you're pressing mainly through these knuckles and your fingers and fingertips. You're on your ridge tops. And if this feels pretty accessible for you, give yourself a little bit more of a challenge by coming more into a tabletop position. And then again, come into ridge tops, and then slowly lower. And I've been doing these for a while, so I'm going to walk my knees even a little bit further back. This is also going to challenge your core a little bit. Right, so wrist push-ups, lift the heels of your hands slowly with control, lower down. Try not to smash the heels of your hands into the floor. Lift. So as you lower your hands down to the ground, try and leave space for like an M&M or whatever your favorite candy is, just underneath the heel of the hand. And then lower. And then lift the heels of the hands up. Tiny bend to the elbows. Hug your hands towards each other. Come more into a kneeling push-up position, kneeling plank pose, and then bend the elbows a teeny tiny bit. And then push the floor away. And we're just going to do 2 more of those little chaturanga push-ups with the heels of the hands lifted. So I feel my forearms really working hard here. And then sit back off your hands. Okay, the last thing that we're going to do is a stretch. It's going to be more of an active stretch. So taking your right hand to your left fingers, you're going to extend the wrist. So the right hand is going to help pull the fingers back, but you're resisting the stretch a little bit. So once you get there, especially once you get there, instead of just kind of relaxing in the end range motion, I'd like for you to gently press your fingers back against the resistance of your right hand. And we'll take a few breaths there. And then release. and then second side. Left hand goes so face your palm to you. Your left hand is going to curl across the fingers. Resist the stretch as you go into it. And then once you're in the full expression of the stretch, resist also. And then release. And one last time, interlace the hands together behind you. Find the opposite clasp of your hands that you did before. Reach back, open up your chest. And release. Inhale, sweep the arms out, up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart. Reach the arms apart. Turn your palms away. Cross your right forearm over your left. Interlace the fingers. And then bring the pinky fingers to rest at your breastbone. Which is a nice position for the wrists here. So if you remember, just, like see if you can figure out which thumb is on top. Make your way out, unclasp the hands, palms face each other. Turn the palms away, cross your left forearm on top, switch the interlace of your fingers, right? So bend the elbows wide, point your knuckles to the floor, and then rest the pinky finger edges of your hands against your chest. Relax the shoulders back. Take a deep breath. And then make your way out and release your hands down. Just notice how the forearms, the wrists, the hands feel. I hope that helped. Please feel free to ask any questions. If this was helpful for you, please share and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Namaste.